Yeah, it's a really long one, so bear with me. It's Regional Coordinator for 2012 Legacy for Children and Young People. So it's specifically about working in the East Midlands so that young people can get the benefit, maximum benefit out of London hosting the Games.
Wow. So how do you go and tackle something like that? That's quite big.
Yeah, I mean it's a massive task. You know, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of young people in the region. So I have to go through intermediaries basically. So I shall certainly be using the Community Media Hub and Wave and as a mechanism for getting into contact with quite a lot of young people. But I guess in reality it's mostly through schools and it's through local authorities. And then it's also through the sports partnership because much of the job is around sport and physical activity, trying to get young people to be more physically active. So today's a brilliant day for that.
And how's it going? So, what's the plan over the next 2 years in the building?
Okay, well, I started the job over a year ago now, and I'm working in Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, Lincolnshire, Leicestershire, and Northamptonshire. So you can see it's quite a big territory. But I'm from Leicester, so I've got particular interest in what happens here. So yeah, I mean, there's 5 things in my work plan. One is to try to make sure that more young people get physically active. 2, more young people volunteering, particularly in sport, but not specifically. 3 is around the Cultural Olympiad, which all your journalistic stuff and all the media stuff is very much a big part of. Internationalism, hosting a marvellous world party. Wouldn't it be nice to know a bit more about who's coming to our party? And then education. It throws up great opportunities educationally for people to learn in and around the Games, whether it be stuff to do with science and technology or whether it's to do with cooking in a foreign language, so maybe you're going to make vegetable chili but you're going to learn about how to make it in Spanish rather than boringly in good old English. So yeah, it's fantastic. But critically, I also need to listen to what you guys want as to what you want to be left with as a consequence of 2012.
And what's the age group?
Well, it's sort of realistically, I mean, you could say it's 0 to 19, but I guess realistically it's school ages, but college age as well. So probably top end 19, although, with young people with learning disabilities, you can sort of stretch that up to 25 really, which is the sort of national criteria that's accepted. So it's a tough one, and it is to some extent never going to be that you can be all things to all people, but at least for some of the time I might be meeting the requirements of a proportion of young people. So yeah, next Tuesday, for instance, I'm going to do a training day at one of Leicestershire's schools, which will be how do we make 2012 more a part of school life. So little things like that, and maybe that'll have an impact on the 350 kids that go to that school that I'm going to next Tuesday. Fingers crossed.
And what role do you see 2012 playing in the region?
Well, we're lucky, aren't we? Because I think apart from London, obviously, and Weymouth and Poole, which has got the sailing, I think we're going to be, the county anyway, is going to be the most sort of Olympic place outside of southern England for the duration of the Games and the build-up to the Games. I mean, even now, we've got Japanese athletes at Loughborough University, and I've got a little project going with them, which is called Musubi, which is Japanese for connection. So trying to connect the Japanese athletes, the university, to language colleges around the East Midlands. So we've got kids going in for a Musubi day. So, but all I can still say is konnichiwa, and that's my job lot. So I need to learn a bit more Japanese. But
sorry.
No, it's fine.
How do you find that young people related to Musubi?
To
the day,
to that day, that particular day, they love it. I mean, in some cases, the students are actually doing Japanese at school, so it gives them another dimension on that. And when they don't know any Japanese, it's all brand new. And from my experience, I mean, I've taught for 20 odd years, I'm ancient. Most young people like to learn new things. I think there's an adventure there, so I like to try and make sure that it is a learning adventure.
And you touched on internationalism as well, and why do you think that is so important for young people to?
Well, I mean, I think we're at an advantage in this country in that we are a very multi-ethnic society now. So I think in a lot of our schools, a lot of young people really understand global dimensions and global context. So they might have young people in their school whose family came from Southeast Asia, or they might have people in their school that came from Uganda or Kenya. You know, I'm saying those because I used to teach at Judgmeadow, and a lot of the kids I used to teach, their parents had come from Uganda. But that's not true everywhere. You know, if I go into rural Lincolnshire, I go to little schools that are all white, they really only understand their own kind of culture. And in parts of Lincolnshire there has been, I won't say trouble, but there have been difficulties in coming to terms with, say, Eastern Europeans arriving in Boston, Portuguese. So, you know, there's an awful lot of work still to be done in some parts of this country so people get extra understanding. But I think even for multicultural Leicester, you know, we're going to have people from Brazil, we're going to have people from Trinidad and Tobago, we're going to have people, oh God, you know, the colour, the brightness of it all is just going to be fantastic. And from our point of view, Japanese, what a culture that is. So diverse in comparison to ourselves. So very, very different. And food, sushi, I love sushi actually. I love all food, as you probably said. But yeah, it's just it's just an absolutely wonderful opportunity.
And I think when that time comes as well, young people can embrace all these cultures. What do you think is going to be happening?
Well, I really do hope that there'll be a sort of carnival atmosphere around the whole of the country. I'd hope that our opening ceremony in some way, whilst reflecting Britishness, whatever that is, will also sort of like dip into international cultures and maybe some of the people that have settled here, from Asian cultures, African Caribbean cultures, and reflect that within the opening ceremony. I just think there's going to be so many ways. Classic for me, and hopefully you'll get involved in that, loads of young people will get involved in that, is the torch relay. When that torch relay comes around the country, when it runs past Phoenix Square here, you know, in the hands probably of a young person, maybe yourself, that is just going to be a wonderful opportunity. And in that torch relay, in that celebration, you've got a chance to learn all sorts of cultural things, explore all sorts of different cultural dimensions. So, you know, you might get some traditional English people who love to see a bit of Morris dancing, you know, I don't know. But you also might want Bhangra there, you might want a bit of salsa there, you might want a bit of Lindy dancing, you know, really get a real range of stuff going on alongside the torch relay. And we're also trying to get lots of schools to twin with countries overseas, schools overseas. So there is the kind of the big programme called International Inspiration, and some Leicester schools connected up to schools in Nigeria in particular. So I went to an event at Ellesmere College, special college, where they had linked to an all-girls school in the Muslim part of Nigeria. So that was a really interesting blend of cultures, religions, the fact that Ellesmere is a special college for people with learning disabilities. You know, lots of mutual learning going on through that. But I'm trying to get my own school that I'm a governor of to link to a school in a country overseas. We've actually got a link, which is bizarre, because it's like the school I'm a governor of is Braunston. We've got a link to a little school in rural Lincolnshire, because kids at my school come from, they've probably got about 19 different nationalities and languages. They're all white, near Grantham and Wood, so, you know, real contrast.
And are there any, like, if there's any young people person watching this right now, are there any things that they can get involved in right now? Or?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, all of the community media stuff that's going on, I would just say, see if you can find some links to 2012 there. Get local athletes, because, you know, with Loughborough being on the doorstep, we've got swimmers, athletes, we've got hockey players, we've got gymnast Sam Oldham, who's just come back from Singapore with gold medal and a silver medal around his neck. He trains at Loughborough, he's 17 years of age. He's nice looking as well. So, yeah, it's a perfect sort of opportunity maybe for some of the young ladies here who are doing the media hub to have a chat to a lad who's just come back from Singapore, where, you know, the first ever Youth Olympic Games has been held, and he's got some bling around his neck, you know. So lots of opportunities. Volunteering, of course, volunteering, and that, you know, there are some issues, and I can't pretend I've got answers to these issues. You know, London will only accept 18 plus at the time, so people who are sort of 16 now could apply for the 18 now, and but there are issues like how do people pay to get down there? They're not providing accommodation, you know. I would struggle with that. A young person just fresh out of college or school wanting to volunteer, tough. So I'd say, there are going to be things happening locally that around the GB team at Loughborough. There are going to be opportunities there. There are going to be whole days where the place is just awash with star athletes collecting their kit, and they're going to need some support for that. With the Japanese, if you speak of Japanese, you're at a distinct advantage. But it doesn't stop at that. Volunteering, if you're a sixth former or at a college, volunteering in your local high school or your local 11 to 16 school or your local primary school to help run sports activities or to help run after school clubs that have got an international flavour or whatever. I just think, well, the limits of people's imaginations as much as anything else, and most young people I know, their imaginations are quite limitless. So I think there's lots of opportunity.
And if any of them, sorry, one last question, if any of them have an idea or they want to put some suggestions through to you, is there a way of doing that?
Yeah, there's definitely a way of doing that. My email address at work is g.nash@elborough, that's lboro.ac.uk, and I'm more than happy to have emails come through, or I'm sure John can provide a link through Citizens Eye or Community Media Hub or Wave, which will give people a way of getting hold of me. I'm quite happy, people can give me a call or they can drop me an email. Fantastic, because I've had a lot of people working for local authorities and sports partnerships telling me what the legacy ought to be for young people. And it's actually hard to get a perspective on that from young people, so I'm very open to hearing what you think 2012 should leave behind.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.